Good morning, fourth grade. Today you have lesson 99, and it's subtracting fractions with uncommon denominators. So this was one of the reasons that we've been practicing that least common denominator. It's because sometimes you won't have the same denominator, and yet you have to have the same denominator to add or subtract. So you already did adding with uncommon denominators. So today we're making it into subtracting with uncommon. So fractions must have a common denominator before they can be subtracted. Because if I were to draw two circles and the first one be in fourths and this one be in eighths, how do I add or take away? Because what would my answer be? It doesn't work. So that's why we have to change them. So find the least common denominator, and to help you remember, least common denominator is the same thing as a least common multiple. So least common. Now I had somebody ask me, why do we have least common if it's talking about multiples, but it's the greatest common factor? Well, when you are doing factors, you are trying to reduce. And so you're trying to get to the smallest. Well, think about if you have like a big number, so 72, and you're wanting to divide it to get to the smallest number. Well, like I know the fact family 8 and 9 makes 72. If I divide it by 8, my answer is going to be 9. But if I divide it by 9, my answer is going to be 8, and 8 is smaller. So if we're reducing, we want to get to the smallest term, which means we want to use the greatest number. But here, we want to find the least common because that's going to get us our smallest denominator. If I just said, so if I told you one time that whatever your denominators are, so in this case 4 and 8, if you just do 4 times 8, you're going to get a common denominator because that's 32. And so I know that 32 goes into both those numbers since I just multiplied it. But that's a really big denominator. So if I did, if I was doing, okay, how do I get from 4 to 32 times 8? That means I'm going to have 8 30-seconds, and then I'm going to have 4 30-seconds. And that's really big. Okay, now sometimes that's what we need, but in this case, I'm going to show you that, well, they did it in the example. They said, all right, I need to make the least common denominator, so I'm going to list out my multiples of both of them. And like I said, you only have to list a couple, so here's my multiples of 4 and of 8. So 4, 8, 12. Well, when I go to do my eighths, I go 8, 16. Well, already I have 8 and 8. So yes, 8 is already one of my denominators, but that's okay. It can be one of my denominators. So this time, I'm asking myself, how can I, if my denominator, my new denominator is going to be 8, how do I get from 4 to 8? Well, I did times 2, so I'm going to do times 2 over here. Now I'm going to have 2 eighths minus 1 eighth. That's way, way, way better than having 8 30-seconds, take away 4 30-seconds. And if I do that and I get, well, 8 take away 4 is 4, I'm left with 4 to 30-seconds. Well, guess what? I have to reduce that. I have to divide that to get a smaller number. Whereas if I found the least common denominator to start with, 1/8 cannot be reduced. That's already as small as it can be. So that is why we find the least common denominator. We want the smallest denominator that's possible. But if we're reducing, we want the greatest common factor. Okay, so write the numerator that makes the fractions equivalent. Some of us have been struggling with this, so let's go over it. It has the denominator already, so it found the common denominator. So how do I get, sorry, that's supposed to be a question mark. How do I get from 5 to 10? What do I have to do? I multiply times 2. So I'm going to put that, I'm going to say times 2. 5 times 2 gets me to 10. So up here, I have to do times 2 also. So 2 times 2 is 4. 2/5 is the same as 4/10. Okay, how do I get from 13 to 26? That's a really unusual one. It's not a fast fact. So you can always do 26 divided by 13. But I also know that, 3 and 3 make 6, and 1 and 1 make 2. So that must be times 2. So I do times 2 up here. So 4 times 2 is 8. 4/13 is the same as 8/26. Okay, keep practicing that. Number 2, write the least common denominator with each set of fractions. All right, they left a little space down at the bottom for you to write your multiples, because least common means the same, denominator we get from our multiples. So least common multiples makes our least common denominator. So I'm going to write my multiples of 3 and of 8. Okay, once again, I'm just going to do like 4 of them to start with. So I'm going to say 3, 6, 9, 12. Then I'm going to say 8, 16. So far I did 4 of my 3s and I don't have enough. So I better keep going. 8, 16, 24, 32. Okay, now let me go up to my 3s. So I did 4 of them and that wasn't enough. So now I'm going to keep going. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24. Ooh, I finally found one that matches. 24 and 24. So that means my least common denominator, the number that would be shared from both of them, is 24. Okay, so that's what you're going to do. So let's write out this one. We have 4, 2, and 6. So here's 2, here's 4, here's 6. Okay, so 6, 12, 18. Let's see if I can find any that match there. 4, 8, 12, 16. All right, so far, the only number I have the same is 12, and I know that if I say 2s, I'm going to get to 12 because it's an even number. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Okay, so if I look at my biggest number first, 6s are in the 2 and the 6, but not in 4. 12, though, is my first number. So that's the smallest one. That's the least. My smallest number, that is the same. So therefore, my least common denominator for all 3 of those is 12. All right. So what you just did up above is going to help you with number 3. Because number 3, it says, write the difference. Difference means a subtraction problem. Write the difference after finding the least common denominator and making equivalent fractions. All right, so I'm going to use a different color to help us here. So I have to find the common denominator for 2 and 3. So off to the side, I'm going to write my 2s and I'm going to write my 3s. 2, 4, 6, 8. Okay, if I do my 3s, 3, 6, and I can already stop because I see a 6 and I see a 6. So I need to make both of them, both of my fractions, into 6ths. Okay, so 1/2, I'm going to say 1/2 is going to be equal to something over 6. And this one's going to be something over 6. And I'm going to subtract whatever it is. So this is just like what you were doing on number 1 now. You see 2/5 equals blank over 10. Here 1/2 equals blank over 6. So now what did I do to get from 2 to 6? What do I do to get from 2 to 6? 2, 4, 6. I times 3. So I'm going to multiply 3. What did I do to get from 3 to 6? 3, 6. I times by 2. Okay, so now I can go back and add my numerator in. So 1 times 3 is 3, so 3 6, and 1 times 2 is 2. So now I have 3 6, take away 2 6 equals 1 6, because I have 3 take away 2, and that's 1. And then my denominator, since it's the same now, it stays the same. So 1 6 is my answer. Go ahead and circle it so I know. All right, let me do another one with you since this is our brand new skill. All right, we need to figure out 5s and 10s. So I'm going to write, you know what, I could even write it down below here, 5 and 10. All right, so 5, 10, 15. Well, look at this. Watch. 10, 20. I already have a common denominator. 10 is my common denominator. Look up at your problem, though. Since this is already a 10, I am not going to change that. I need to change my first one. So I'm going to write 3 fifths. Oh, sorry, not 3 fifths. I'm going to write, sorry. I'm going to write 3 fifths equals something over 10, because that's my new denominator, minus 3 tenths. That one stays the same. 3 tenths is going to be 3 tenths, because I need to have that common denominator, and that's what I have. So now, times what? 5 times what equals 10? 5, 10. 5 times 2. So I do 2 up here. So my new numerator, 3 times 2, is going to be 6. All right, so now I have 6 take away 3, which equals 3. So I'm going to write 3 tenths. And 3 is a prime number, and it can only be made by making 1 and 3. Neither of those divide evenly with 10, so that means 3 tenths is my smallest fraction. All right, I have a little bit of time left. I will do another one with you just so you can keep practicing and seeing how to do this. All right, so we need to list 7s and 14s. So 14 and 28. So 7, 14. Oh, and I can stop because I have 14 and 14, which means this one stays the same. So I'm just changing the 1. So I'm going to have something over 14 take away 3 14ths, because that one gets to stay the same. All right, how would I get, what would I do to get from 7 to 14? I multiply by 2. So 5 times 2 is 10. So 10 14ths take away 3 14ths. 10 take away 3 is 7 14ths. Okay, now we started with 14ths already, and we ended with 14ths, but I can reduce this number. Like I said, we don't normally, but we can reduce it. Today, it does not say reduce, and I don't want you to, but I wanted to just point out that I said earlier, if you find the least common denominator, you don't need to reduce, but that's because we already kept 14 that we had to start with, okay? All right, I'm leaving you with only one to try out on your own. Look back at all these first 3. Look at how we did that and do the same thing for the last one. All right, 4 is a story problem. It says, although it is illegal to buy or sell gum in Singapore, that's crazy, tourists may bring 2 packages of gum when they enter the country. Dad, Mom, and Isabel each brought 2 packages of gum. So draw that out if you need. You have Dad, you have Mom, and you have Isabel, and each of them had 2 packages of gum. If every package had 5 pieces of gum, how many pieces of gum did the family bring to Singapore? Okay, I got you started on that. All right, the next part, you have area. Find the area using the correct formula. So remember, if I have area, I have a square or a rectangle. I can have both. And for the first one, it just says 11, which means I have 11 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 by 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right, now I just said you have an 11 by 11 because that's what it would be. Now I don't want to count all those, neither do you. But guess what? This word by means this. So 11 times 11. So that's for your area. All right, next you're going to round to the nearest hundred and estimate your answer. So 437, it means you're rounding up or down to that number, but you have to look at this number to figure that out. Okay, so do the same thing for all of those. You do not need to do this real side, you're just doing the estimating side. Okay, then practice rounding to the nearest 10. So be careful, you're practicing rounding to the nearest 10 means you find your tens place and you look at your ones place. Okay, and then elapsed time means how much time has passed. So try to solve those. All right, good luck, and if you have any questions, please raise your hand.